if you double in size next year and do $30 million, you can expect you're going to have a larger volume of issues. That's just how it's going to go.
Yeah. I mean, especially in the construction space, like any contractor that says they've never had an issue, they're full of it.
Yeah.
You run into stuff, you run into so many unforeseen things that, it happens, right? And
welcome back to another episode of the Mission Control Podcast. I'm your host, Mike. Jesus Christ. Off to a choppy start.
Hey,
listen, we aim for perfection, but we understand we're not going to attain it. But what I try to do is I look at it like a gas tank, right? And if this is empty is imperfect and full is perfect, I just want to get as much gas as possible. Every day, know that I did my best to move the needle just a little bit. Let's try that again. I'm your host, Mike Stearns of the Mission Control Podcast. This episode's proudly sponsored by the team at Roofer. If you need a CRM, instant roof quotes, roof measurements, clean and pristine proposals, which will give your prospects no choice but to buy from you, click the link below in the description. They'll know I sent you. If you want to feel good about it, tell them I sent you. You'll be glad that you did. Very special guest today, Mike Putzer with MP Roofing, Siding, and Gutters.
And windows, yep. Everything and exteriors.
I mean, it's a mouthful.
Yeah, well, we usually go shorthand, MP Roofing and Siding. It's easier. That's what we like doing anyway.
Let's go super short, MP.
Yeah, that works.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no doubt. I wore my custom Ascend dunks. I bought them for the whole team, and my Reebok shirt in hopes to get a sponsorship. Slide in the DMs, Reebok. You know what to do. Hey, you got to shoot your shot. We talked about this.
You got to do what you got to do.
If I don't shoot the shot, how am I going to make it?
Exactly.
So, how long you been in business?
We've been in business for almost 3 years.
Okay. How's that been?
It's been great, man. I mean, it's a transition, right? You go from working for somebody for most of your life to then, taking the plunge to open your own business and then it's all on you. There's no, you can't point the fingers at anybody else. So, but when we were doing this, probably a year and a half in, I think I told my wife, I was like, this doesn't pan out. I got to figure something else out because I don't know if I can go back to working for somebody else. So, and now we're cranking. We got steady business going and we're just trying to keep growing it year after year now.
It's funny. I had the same conversation with my wife at the time. I'm like, I got to let you know. Okay. If this thing doesn't work out, it's going to be a real problem. I'll probably be turning tricks down on Grand Street because the likelihood of me going back and being ordered around by somebody is the closest thing to zero that's not zero as far as percentage of likelihood of it happening. So cross your fingers, hope and pray that this thing really works.
Yeah. I mean, it's wild, right? You don't even know you have it, right? When you're working for somebody, you're doing something and you just have that constant anxiety of someone's going to give you a hassle for something you really can't control. So there's a lot of challenges a little bit in business, especially a lot of challenges in the construction field, but just getting rid of that anxiety of why is my boss calling me? What's going on? If you have enough pulse on your business and you're talking to your customers, there's really no surprises in what comes up. So, and you can control that, right? So it makes it that much easier and you're doing it for yourself. You're not doing it for someone else.
You couldn't be more right. And I can especially relate to why is my boss calling me? I would get calls. I had to change my fucking ringtone. I'm sitting there with a doctor. I'm like, dude, I said, I'm fucked up. My phone rings. I see the name and my heart goes into like tachycardia. I was like, I got to do something. He's like, change your ringtone. So I changed it from the ringtone that I had to like, it was like a Chinese ambiance ringtone, soft, melody. And it helped a little bit. It moved it in the right direction, but I'm like, this ain't enough. We got to figure something else out. And here we are. Look at us.
Yeah.
Thriving.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Something like that.
Well, yeah. It's a loosely defined thriving. Yeah. What is your background in that you decided to open a roofing company?
I've been in construction my whole life. My family my uncles owned a big construction company, and my other uncle owned another construction company. So my dad worked for them growing up. So I was in the field. God, I remember I was in the field probably as young as 5, 6 back when my dad used to do a ton of windows on the side, and he would take me with him, and I would be the aluminum window like cleanup crew. So if you remember old storm windows, that was what I would have to do. So, the end of a weekend, he might give me $100, and as a 6, 7 year old, I was the thought I was the coolest kid in the world walking in the convenience store with $100. You want to talk about?
I'm rich.
Yeah, exactly. You know how much candy and snacks $100 would buy back?
Fuck, at 13, I was folding pizza boxes for $5 an hour. I feel like I was getting hosed.
Yeah, you know, back in 92, 93, that bought a lot of candy.
Oh,
so, yeah, that was, so I've been in this space forever. And then, you know, me being a 18-year-old kid, I was like, I'll go to college, do something else. I don't want to be in construction my whole life.
Yeah.
And, you know, did the whole college thing, was great. Then got out of college, got a job, you know, big professional corporate job, thought it was going to be the greatest thing ever.
I made it.
It was the worst. It was the worst I'd ever, you know, I never liked anything about it, and ended up, you know, getting back into construction, doing like in-home sales for people. And then, you know, then it just kind of devolved from there. Ended up going to a supply house that, you know, we would sell actually directly to contractors, try to get them to buy material from us. Mm-hmm. And after meeting with these guys, you know, you'd deal with contractors every day. And I thought to myself, I was like, I'm pretty sure I can do this. And, you know, one thing led to another, and we took the plunge, and it worked out. And so far it's worked out, but you know, it's, there's a lot to do. It's, you know, I kind of joked with my wife when we opened, probably, you know, a couple months into the business, I was like, man, if I would have worked this hard at any other job, we would have never had to worry about anything. but it's just not the case, right? You never have the same motivation when it's for someone else as opposed to when it's for you. So, yeah. You know, it makes a big difference for sure.
So it makes it hard to hire sometimes too. You feel like nobody's ever going to do it the way you'll do it or care as much. But I'll tell you, I've been surprised. I've managed to find just an amazing team, and turned out like once I started taking those hats off and letting go of the reins a little bit, they do it a lot better than me in some instances, and in most instances, maybe all, quite honestly. You know, you feel it's just tough to really gauge when you're wearing 13 hats when you start your company and you're doing so much. It's like, how much of this could be better? No one could be better. This is my baby. And then you find the right people, and maybe the first time you don't, and then you try somebody else, and then you find somebody who's effective and can focus all their time and energy into that one group of tasks, right? And the byproduct of that is just an amazing product or experience. And you're like, huh. And then you start having confidence issues. You're like, maybe I suck. I'm a fucking imposter. Why am I here?
Yeah.
No, it's just interesting to think about. Yeah, we talk about like the kind of the challenges and like the corporate world being the worst. And I'm reading a book right now called Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey. And I'm just in the first like 40 pages. But one of the things he talks about are like green lights are a lot of things in life that kind of give you affirmation or know that you're on the right track. The yeses, the different emotions, positive emotions associated with life to make you feel as if, okay, I'm doing this right. And then he talks about like yellow lights and red lights and the things that make you feel the opposite of that. And then how red lights can be green light. They may not feel like it in the time. And as I sit here and have this conversation, I think about things in my past and positions that I had where I look back and I'm like, man, I did not fucking like that job. But I'll tell you what, I learned a lot that ended up turning into like crucial components as far as how I run my business, things that I do, and probably wouldn't be in the situation I'm in without those experiences.
Oh, for sure, man. It's you know, even like working for that distributor that I worked for, it's, you know, when I talk to other contractors, they're like, why do you know so much about these random things? And I was like, because when I was working for that distributor, it was a masterclass in product, right? When most contractors grow up and know how to do it. They don't know the product inside and out. Right. But that was my job. Like we had to know the product inside and out to know these things. So to know both sides of it's a huge advantage, right? You can really, you know, depending on which customer it is, you see what they feed more into. They feed more into how it's going to go on, or they feed more into what's the product and how much detail they want. Do they want the broad strokes? And you feel that out in the process. And then, but you got to be able to pivot which way they want to go. And knowing that part of it's huge. So yeah, could I have done what I'm doing now without doing those other things? Probably not. So it's all a way to get you there, but it's, yeah, there's, yeah, so it is good in that aspect of it too, right? You got to learn from the other side. It's like, I couldn't have came out of college and just opened this. I would have failed miserably.
Yeah.
So, cause I would have been some brash 22-year-old thinking I knew everything about everything. So, it just doesn't, you got to go through that stuff to learn it. And there's people that have worked for me that thought they could do the same thing. And, they went in their own way and tried to do it, and it didn't work out because they didn't take the time to learn what it actually took. They just, you think you know what you're doing. And I mean, I thought I knew what I was doing 3 years ago, and looking back now from 3 years ago, it's night and day.
And 5 years from now, we'll look back at this very day and be like, we didn't know shit.
Yeah. I'll probably look back at tomorrow and say the same thing. It's
funny how that works.
Yeah. It's a different animal. It's just, you got to go through it. And I mean, and it's the biggest challenge is just finding the right people to do it, to help you with it. I mean, we've gone through crews, we've gone through guys. You keep the ones that are awesome and effective, and you take care of them. Yeah. And let the rest kind of figure itself out. It's kind of how it's how I've run it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And that's a really good point. You brought up something that I think is really worth highlighting and diving into. And it's, you guys were pretty much subject matter experts, a factory of information as it relates to product. And a lot of the times what I see on the sales side for companies that have sales reps like that are, they may not have that situational awareness to understand who their customer is and what's going to turn them on, turn them off, what's going to get them to lean in, what's going to get them to shut down. And there's different personalities out there, and depending on the type of personality you're dealing with, some people don't want the fucking laundry list of all the specifications of this product and the technologies behind it. They don't need to know how the sausage is made. They're just fucking hungry and want the sausage, right?
Yep.
But some people, that'll be the reason they choose you. You have that conversation, you install the roof, the siding. Let me ask you, why did you end up choosing us? Well, because you were so detail oriented. You understood everything about the products that you were installing. It gave me a level of confidence that I didn't get with any other contractor. But you got to be situationally aware. So kudos to you. I praise you.
Yeah, you got to figure out what makes them tick. Whether that's, I mean, at the end of the day, there's enough people in here. If you're a price shopper, there's people that can hit that point. If you're a quality shopper, people can hit that point. Can you hit all of them? And the reason, you just got to figure that out in the moment and see what helps them and what they want to do. Because at the end of the day, $1,000, on a $30,000 project, if you're $1,000 more or you're, whatever, it's a comfort level thing. You're spending that much money. You want to be comfortable with that person. So how do you be comfortable with that person? They have to talk your language. If someone's talking about detail of product when you really just want the broad strokes, then you're not connecting. You want to make sure that they're comfortable with you. So when they call you or when they do anything, they want a level of comfort. You're not going to go, even if someone, let's say I'm 30 and someone's 25, if they're not comfortable with that person that's 25, they're fine with paying the extra $5,000 just to be with someone that they're more comfortable doing, because they want to make sure their project's done right. No one wants to spend that much money and go through the horror shows the horror stories that everybody's heard and seen from contractors. So they want a level of comfort, and they want to know who they're talking to that they can call if there's an issue to get it resolved.
Yeah. That's a really good point. I love that. So it's been a journey for you over the last few years. Things are going well. What's one challenge that you've experienced in starting your company, and maybe specifically one that you just didn't account for, kind of came out of left field?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's the labor of everything, right? You got to find, like, when you're talking roofing, siding, those type of things are big projects, right? Like, I couldn't do it myself. You wouldn't be a profitable business doing it yourself. So finding the right crews and knowing when to move on, that's the hardest thing, right? You can get to a point where you have business sold, right? The business is sold. Now you got to put it on. You can be the greatest salesman in construction in the history of the world. You don't get paid till you install it. So, the biggest challenge was finding those right people to install. We've went through crews, we tried different guys, and, sometimes we held on too long because, you get in that pinch of, well, we have to install this to get it done, but these guys aren't doing it to the standard that you want. So what can you do? You can train them, you can micromanage them, but then that's taking you away from doing other things. It's funny. We got 2 awesome crews now that do the work for us. And one of the gentlemen that used to be on our crew, he's now like our project manager. He goes around, checks on them, makes sure, keeps me up to date on what's going on. And he laughs. He looks at me all the time. He's like, you should have fired us way before. He's like, but you held on, right? Because we had to get business done. We had to get stuff installed. We had to get things going. So, those are the biggest challenges. And now that we have those crews, now the big thing is keeping them happy, right? Keeping them going on those different things. And then, the other side of it is there's so much that goes into this stuff that people don't realize. I mean, just even on your side, right? Like, there's reasons why I hired companies like you guys to handle those things. I'm not a marketing guy.
Yeah.
So like the marketing that goes into it, the accounting that goes into it, even all the back end stuff that you got to deal with on regulatory stuff, like all these different things that, I didn't know about. And you think you got a handle on it, right? When you're like, pie in the sky, you're making this grand plan that you're going to do all these things. But then when the nitty gritty starts happening, you're like, wait a second, I didn't know about this, didn't know about that. And you get pulled in, 3 or 4 different directions while still trying to maintain the main thing. It can be a lot.
Baptism by fire.
Yeah. And I mean, that's everybody. That's how, I don't know any other way that you could do it. There's no way you're going to walk into something that everything about, or what's coming down the road. I don't know how you would, unless you did it before and failed at it, then started it again.
Yeah, that couldn't be more true, especially in my case. When I started the company, I got my LLC and my bank account. I'm like, oh, it's go time, baby. Let's get it. I was like, I need to process payments. Like Square. Everyone uses Square. Get a Square account. I think my second transaction, they put a hold on it. You got to verify your identity. I said, okay. I was like, by the way, I just started my company like 2 weeks ago. So if you could release that $4,500, it would be really, really meaningful to me and my team, right? My family, my daughter, I think was 12 at the time.
I know exactly.
And they're like, well, we'll get to it when we get to it. And okay, great. Do you have a timeline and when you might get to it? No. Oh, okay. You talk about feeling helpless. Holy fuck. So some time passes. I got to get a better solution for this. I mean, this is, unacceptable. So I reach out to a bunch of places and they're like, yeah, that's fine. Just give us 90 days of financials. I was like, well, that's the thing about having just started my business. I don't have 90 days of financials. Like, you want me to hop into Photoshop? I can figure some shit out, but I don't want you coming back to me talking about this is fraud. They're like, well, if you don't have 90 days of financials, can't do anything for you. I said, well, it's like, when somebody solicits you for a job, like I'm on LinkedIn, somebody told me, I got a message. I qualified to be a barista. I was like, fuck yeah, let's get it.
Nailed it.
Yeah. I love me an Americano. It's really easy to make. I think I could do that job well, but, it was so frustrating, but it felt a lot like when I was getting out of college before I got into sales and I was trying to break into sales and be like, well, you need 3 years of sales experience and you got to be under 25. And it's like, well, I'm 26. I don't have any sales experience. I did debt collections, which if you ask me is way harder than sales. I'm getting people to pay for shit that they haven't had in 4 years. Like that's really hard, really a lot harder than selling somebody something that's going to make them money. So you should probably just hire me. But it felt a lot like that. It's like, you need this and this. It's like, it's kind of impossible for that to happen. And for us, it's apparently, and I didn't know this when I started, it's a higher risk category because everything we're doing, we've got a couple clients locally, but the majority of our clients are throughout the US and, we're running larger payments, which is sometimes problematic, and you're doing everything like virtually keyed in. So there's never a swipe. And apparently those two things together, those payment processing companies don't love.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it took like 2 months to get like a decent solution in place after, but that took dozens of hours of my time that I didn't account for, right? You have what you do, how you're going to do it. You got your little schedule, things are great. And like, oh, you can't have your money. You better figure it out. And that was taxing on my soul initially. And not in a million years would I have forecasted that.
No, I remember, the first credit card payment we took, And I'm like, we were just starting out. We had bills to pay. I had to get people paid. And they're like, yeah, you'll have it in like 7 days. I was like, wait a second. I was like,
what do you know about cash flow and roofing?
Yeah. I was like, maybe 7 hours. They're like, yeah, no, not going to happen. And you're like, oh, cool. Let me try to figure some.
Yeah. I guess I'll just go get a payday loan.
Yeah. Dude, it's, that was the first, I was like, oh, okay. So try to get checks for the first start. And then you get that, even, when you're running lean at the beginning, even that 3%, you're like, oh man.
Yeah.
Like I anticipated another $300-400 here. And it's just
shit adds up.
Yeah.
It's funny how like percentages, they're proportionally the same, but they hit a lot different as the numbers get bigger. I had a sports truck, a Porsche Cayenne, and I traded in. I took a massive L on the depreciation when I traded it in. And I was like, these fucking thieves. It was 15%. 15% of a number that large is a lot different than 15. I'm like, because then I started thinking, like, are you overreacting? I always try to check in with myself because I know I have a tendency, an innate tendency to be passionate and respond and take a step back. Okay, so if this was a $10,000 car and they gave you $8,500, would you be? That'd be pretty fair. It just hits a lot different when those numbers scale.
Yeah. I remember, God, we did we do financing, right? And financing, what people don't know is like, yeah, I might be able to give you 0% interest, but they take 8-9% off the top, right?
Yeah.
So the first job, I was like, oh man, we're gonna make like $7,000. This is gonna be great. We'll be able to get, pay for more advertising, get more leads. And then like the actual deposit comes in from the finance company. You're like, wait, where's all the rest of the money? And like in your head, you're like, it's 70%, like whatever, no big deal.
Right.
And then when it's, $1,500, $2,000 that came off, you're like, oh, all right. So we're going to like break even here.
We need to renegotiate these terms, please.
Yeah, exactly.
I've seen the same thing happen as companies grow. So I have a client down in Florida and he's like, we're just getting way too many fucking customer issues. Right. And like when we broke it down, his baseline, when he was handling everything, wearing most of the hats and doing a couple $1 million, there weren't that many issues. Also, there weren't nearly as many jobs. When he was over 15 million, he's not handling all of them. So he's not aware of all the good that's going on. Usually we're focusing as leaders and owners of like what things aren't going perfectly. And then how do we try to get them to be more perfect, more consistently? So all he's seeing is the bad side of it and just surely the number. But then when we backed in the math, I was like, proportionally, it's pretty much the same. I'm like, you're just doing a lot more jobs. Mm-hmm. Sure. We should do our best to create systems and processes around preventing this from happening again, right? Absolutely. Comma, if you double in size next year and do $30 million, you can expect you're going to have a larger volume of issues. That's just how it's going to go.
Yeah. I mean, especially in the construction space, like any contractor that says they've never had an issue, they're full of it.
Yeah.
You run into stuff, you run into so many unforeseen things that, it happens, right? And, if you're doing a roof on somebody's house and their whole roof's rotted and you said, oh no, your roof's going to be 12,000. Oh, now you couldn't see the rotted board, and the whole thing's toast. And then, that might've been all they could afford. Right. And now you got to go to them and say, hey, it's an extra, $2,000, that might just be, that's enough to give somebody a bad customer experience because they just didn't have that money. And, there's not really much you can do. It's an unforeseen thing. You're ripping some of this stuff off. You have no idea what you're walking into. I mean, we did one the other day where we ripped off some old siding on somebody's house that's been there for 40 years. We had to rebuild the whole wall.
Surprise.
Yeah. Right. And luckily if there's little things like that, like we usually eat it, but one of the first jobs we ever had is a massive house and we're on the very last wall. And it was a big square house. And in the middle was actually a courtyard. So typically a house, you're siding 4 sides, right? This you're siding 8. So on the 8th wall, we open it up. The wall's got 8 windows in it. This is peak COVID. Lead times are crazy. And they had a leak in that wall for years. Somebody did the aluminum around the windows wrong and water was leaking in and the entire wall was rotted. So we're at the very end of this project and the entire wall shot. And now we have to rebuild a whole new wall, and we can't do anything for 6 weeks because now we got to order windows. So this person just went through getting their whole house re-sided, and it took a while. It was a massive house. And then we get to the final point. We're almost done. And now they got to live with a wall that's tie-backed for 6 weeks while we wait for windows to come in before we can even rebuild it.
It's a tough break.
Yeah. I felt, you felt terrible for them. And it was it was a mess, but that's the stuff you run into that, if somebody says every job goes smooth, they either haven't been doing it long enough or
completely full of shit.
Yeah.
Well, because especially inherently there's distrust from homeowners and contractors. Cause like you said, all the horror stories. So it's hard for it not to seem like scammy, snake oilish when it's like, oh, by the way, it's going to be extra $3,800 because this was all rotted, and I swear we didn't know, right? No matter how legitimate it is.
No, I mean, there's guys that there's some stuff that's obvious, right? Like we can tell for the most part, usually when something's bad like that, you couldn't tell because it was behind some hardwood already, and then the insides were rotted. But there's also guys that are out there, like they'll do it, right? So that same $12,000 roof that I bid at $12,000 because I know there was some rotted wood, somebody only bid it at 10. And then they put in their contract that, we'll give you
change order clause.
We'll give you 2 sheets of plywood at this. The rest is at, X amount of money.
Sure.
And they know that they're going to be putting in 30 sheets of plywood. So they know in their head, oh, we're going to get an extra $2,000, $2,500. And they know they're going to ding them with a change order.
Right.
But they get the person to sign on the dotted line. And then when you got somebody's roof open, what are they going to do? They're not going to
talk about leverage.
Yeah. Like, what are you going to do? Tell them no.
Right.
So, we try to do it the other way and be more transparent, but there's plenty of guys out there that go that route. Cause they know once they get you on the hook, what are you going to do?
Yeah, no, that's a fact. So let's talk about like the rotted board. You can't see it. Do you bring that up preemptively in the conversation for sale? Like just some things you should know just to kind of hedge against it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I tell people all the time, like, when I meet with people, I tell them like, listen, we put two sheets of plywood in our contracts. It's just, you have to do it. I got to protect myself with the whole thing. But I tell people like, listen, if it's 4, if it's 8, if it's 10, we're not going to have a conversation. We're just going to do it and move on and fix it for you and make sure it's done right. Because that's the other thing too, is with a smaller team that we have, we got to make sure we do it right the first time. We don't have the manpower or the time to be running around and fixing issues. So, my guys know that if it takes a little longer, make sure you get it done right, because I don't want to have to go back. These homeowners are all great. After we do the project, I never want to hear from them again.
It's not you, it's me.
Yeah,
I swear.
So I work with people too. Like, we've only had it happen, a handful of times. So, one house we had to resheet the whole house in plywood. So in that situation, I told the homeowner, I was like, listen, this is a massive expense. It was like 130 sheets of plywood. It's a ton. And I told them, hey, you pay for the plywood, I'll pay for the labor, more or less. So instead of hitting them for, $7,000, $8,000, it was like $1,200 for them. So it's just, I try to work with people. It never, you can get jaded in the business where you forget this is somebody's home, right? You're going to somebody's house every day and you're working and you're just doing your job and you're just trying to get the project done so you can get paid, move on to the next and keep doing projects. But you can never lose sight that this is somebody's home and that this is, they worked hard to get to where they are and to be able to pay for it and to be able to pay me to do the project there. And, you have to reiterate with people like, this is their house. You can't, it's not just another job. You're not going to an office building and doing something and that doesn't affect anybody. The work that you do is going to affect this person for the next 30, 40 years.
I feel personally attacked.
But that's the case. You got to make sure you be cognizant of that because, at the end of the day, these guys show up. It's their job. They do it every day. You can come numb to the idea that somebody lives there and somebody raises their family there. So you have to make sure that, you do the right thing. So, that you don't have issues. We don't get callbacks. We don't have to, come back 3 times and fix something. And you make sure that they're happy with it.
Yeah.
That's why, that's why we focus on making sure it's done right the first time and not have to retouch anything.
I like that. You made mention earlier of the struggle of, finding good crews, and then after that, keeping them happy. How do you keep your crew happy?
I pay them more than other people. You pay them more and then you pay them fast. That's the thing. You got to make sure you pay them on the sub side of stuff. Like I know I pay my guys more than most. And usually right when the job's done, I do the final walkthrough of the homeowner, make sure they're happy with everything. And then you try to get them paid right away. So that way, they see the importance of it and the work that they did, and they're not having to wait around for, weeks or months for money. And then just treat them well. Like, right. It's like stupid. Like, you give them money if they did a good job and they got it done beforehand. You give them a bonus. They're working on a weekend because we got to get a project done at a certain time. You spend $500-$600 on lunch for 2 days because they got to work on the weekend. Just try to make sure that they're happy doing the work that you do, and you treat everybody respectfully. Like, I'm never, construction guys, they tend to be yellers and screamers and, swearing it up and down the wall at everybody. I'm just never going to operate like that. I never want to operate like that. Like, if I don't think I've ever yelled at anybody on our crews, just because it's not how I'm built. It's not how I want to be talked to. So I'm not going to do it to these guys one way or the other. So, just try to treat them with respect, try to give them, help them out when you can. If you can, you got extra tickets to a Bills game, see if they want to go to it. When we get promotional stuff from vendors, you give it to them. Like, I don't need that stuff, but they appreciate it. Yeah. So you try to, share the wealth as much as you can.
Yeah. Be decent and mindful.
Yeah. I mean, the big thing for me is just be respectful to them and pay them what they're worth, Yeah.
It's funny how frequently it seems that people that are responsible for actualizing the product, the service that ultimately keeps the business going, keeps your customers happy, how often, I guess it's overlooked how big of a variable in the equation they are. It's
huge. I mean, it's the crews that we have now, it's night and day. I mean, my wife even jokes, my stress level's way down from, the guys that we were dealing with, the guys that we had for the first 2 years. And I mean, even the guy that was on the crew that still works for me, he says it to this day. Like I said, he's like, we should have fired us a long time ago. So now, now we hold on with a death grip to the guys that we got because they're awesome. So, whatever they need, we try to give it to them and make sure that they're happy. I mean, one of my guys, they drive in from Rochester every day. Jeez. So, now we're looking at trying to find them someplace to be able to crash during the week so they're not driving back and forth to Rochester every day. Because these guys put in hours, man. They're working 7:30 to dark every day. They'll work if the sun goes down at 8:30, they're working till 8:30. Yeah. They'll put in 12, 13-hour days, and they don't complain. They just want to finish that project and be able to get to the next. So it's, it's a lot. Like I even tell them, you guys don't have to work this much, but that's what they want to do, right? They want to be able to make as much money as they can. So who am I to stop them?
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. Go on with your bad self.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, and all these things you're talking about, they kind of roll up into the overarching theme of culture, right? And I've seen this quote a bunch of times, people don't leave companies, they leave managers. And essentially, we're managers, right? We're managing people within our companies. And if you have a shitty culture, you can pay those people as much as you want, and they'll still leave, and sometimes they'll leave for less. I've seen it happen. I may have done it before, right? Where if I walk through these fucking doors and have to hear this person one more time, it's over, right? So I'll go here and make less money because you know what? It'll be enough, and I'll be sane. I'll have some semblance of sanity. I've never been sane, by the way. I'm perfectly imperfect. Super broken, actually, but we're working on it. All right. Progress over perfection. It's one of my favorite lines. Culture is super, super important. And it's the small things that mean a lot. Showing that you're paying attention and you care and you're doing these things. I think it went a long way for me as an employee.
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to the same thing, right? We never, we don't have that now, right? The anxiety of the boss calling you. Yeah. I want to make sure my guys don't have that same anxiety. If they see my name pop up on their caller ID, are they rolling their eyes? Are they going, oh my God, what now? That's what we try to avoid that, because that's what I hated. I hated it.
Yeah.
And then just the nonsense, the stuff that didn't matter, but you had to do it because somebody else told somebody they had to do it, So to do that stuff, not make my guys do that stuff, just let them do what they're good at, and then if they want to learn more and they want to know the ins and outs of everything, I'm happy to show them. One of my guys wanted to learn more how the business runs. Sure, man. Like, what do you want to know? I'll tell them everything. Your goal is to open your own business. Great, man. I'll help you out in any way I can. You just got to make it, be normal to these people and help make sure they know how much you appreciate what they're doing, because like you say, you can't do it yourself. Like I couldn't do it myself.
Right.
I tried. It didn't work.
It always kind of amazed me how people will like cling on and safeguard information, because I don't know, above all else, a lot of times people want to grow in their career, right? If they have a dead end position with no vertical growth opportunity, the likelihood you're going to retain them over an extended period of time is not great. So if you give them a pathway to learn, grow, evolve, and ultimately in a capitalist society, make more money, that's going to keep them motivated to do better and to give it their all and to grow. And when people, like in your instance, like show me how the business works, a lot of people get in that scarcity mindset of like, oh no, they're going to try to leave. It's like, I don't know, if you feel that way, maybe look in the mirror, and maybe they do leave. So what?
And I had so many guys help me that had their own businesses, right? Whether they were roofers or siders or, anything. There were so many guys that I knew in the business that helped me grow the business to where it is now, that and they had no qualms about it. They're doing work. I'm essentially a competitor to them.
Right.
And they were still helping me to grow the business and build it. And if I had questions, they'd help. Even when we had too much work, we had more work than what our crew could handle. Like they would even help install some of the stuff for us just to get stuff done. So, for then me to be gatekeeping enough or arrogant enough to not help somebody else is crazy.
Yeah. Well, and also if you're fearful of giving that person information to help them on their journey, it's likely because you feel like your business can't operate without them. If that's the case and you've created a situation where that person is a linchpin and your business can't operate without them, it's a real problem. And you should probably look at your systems and processes, because yes, it's a pain in the ass to hire people. It's a pain in the ass to train people. And there would be a timeline, a runway of what it would take to replace that person, but you'll be fine. You should be fine without them. And if you're not doing a good enough job as an owner.
Yeah. And you're spread way too thin. You need to get more people in there.
Yeah.
If one guy is going to bring down the whole ship, then you need to bring another guy in to help. Like that's,
yep.
Yeah. And you got to know the pulse of them. You got to talk to them. You got to wonder, you got to ask, what do you want out of this? What's your goal? And find out what makes them tick and what they want to do. And if it's the writings on the wall that they want to get out of there and they want to start their own thing, okay, then plan for it, right? Plan to have somebody training underneath them. So when they get to where they want to go, they can leave, and you can wish them luck and help them in there, what they want to do. And then you have somebody else to kind of fill their shoes after.
Yeah. Should I put Christian on the spot and make him answer these questions now? What do you want to do? What do you want out of this, exactly. Christian? When are you leaving? Yeah, I'm just kidding. You don't have to answer until about 5 minutes after this. Meet me in my office.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's a thing too, right, man? Everybody, a lot of people think they want, I want to show people, because a lot of people think they want to do that, right? They think they want to open the business. They think they want to run it. But then some people aren't built like that. Some people like being able to, shut their phone off at 5 o'clock and not have to worry about it. So why not show them what it is, right? Is this what you want? Do you want to do like that? You want to live like this? You want to have this? You want to be on a quote unquote vacation and
that's
still be getting calls?
That's a fucking amazing point, because a lot of the times people leave, a sales rep in particular, I could do all this. Why am I only getting 10% when I could, do this myself? And then the reality sets in of all the bullshit that they've been shielded from as a result of having a specified role within a company, a well-organized organization, what have you. Then it's too late. But you're right. If you kind of peel the veil back, like, look, this is what you're signing up for. This is what we deal with. This is the type of shit that, you don't have to deal with now, that if you decide, like, we support you, but
I was that guy, right? I was that guy that, oh, this is BS. Like, I can do this myself, whatever. Like, they don't know what they're talking about. I can't believe they're making us do this nonsense. And, then,
Then I got my first OSHA fine.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Then you're in it and you're like, oh, wait, this is no joke. So to show people that, cause then, I don't want to scare anybody away. If they want to do it. But then they might have the realization like, oh, wait, this isn't what I signed up for. And you never want it to be too late for that person where they take that jump and then they're like, this isn't what I wanted. And then what do you do? Right. You either backfill their position already and now then there's not a spot for them or they fall on their face and then they got to go work for somebody else, and some people will do that, but you gotta, yeah, that's why I'd rather show people exactly what they want to do in the business. Like, Julia, she's out of college, she was running the Facebook side of things. She didn't know what she wanted to do. So I was like, what do you want to learn on the business? Do you want to learn the marketing side? You want to learn the business side? You want to learn the accounting side? I'll just show you everything you want in the business. See if you want to keep working for me, awesome. If you want to go into the corporate world in one of these fields, like, you can learn it. That's, just listen, I barely know what I'm doing running this thing, let alone try to tell somebody else what they're doing or what they're doing right or wrong. I mean, it's so, I'll show you what I'm doing. It's probably not perfect. I know it's not perfect. It's definitely dicey at best as far as the actual business running. The installing of stuff is great. The back end stuff, I think my accountant said I kept books like a Neanderthal. So, that type of stuff that you don't even think about. I never took an accounting class. I never did this stuff. I was a pre-med major when I was in college, and now I'm running a roofing company. So what does that show you?
That's funny. It's funny when you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. It's a lot like parenting, where people outside the company look in and it's like everything's, and obviously there's some parents that are better than others, objectively, subjectively, whatever. Same thing with business owners, but a lot of the times it's like you're trying to figure it out as you go. There's, like we had talked about before in starting the business, that carries on in perpetuity where you've got an idea of how things are going to go and then you get punched in the fucking head. I think Tyson says everyone's got a plan to get punched in the face.
Yeah.
You've got this perfect idea, this schedule, this roadmap, and then shit happens. Shit gets real. It's like, okay, well, it looks like we're going to have to pivot here. And now you start making changes and things like that. And it's really interesting.
Yeah. You try to ride the wave and keep doing what works, and what doesn't, you kind of, you take a shot at different things. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And then you move on to something else. But you try to keep, doing what you know best, right? You try to trust people to do stuff that you can't handle, hence the marketing. While you guys do that, hand over accounting to my accounting firm, let them handle that, free me up to do the stuff that I know what to do. And what's that? Going on jobs, assessing projects, explaining what we're going to do to customers, how we're going to fix their house, how we're going to make it what they want, and then relaying that to my installers so they know how to work that project. Those are the main things. The back end stuff that is a hassle, you bring in people that know how to do that, because I'm not great at it. So hire people that can do that. So then it frees you up to actually do what you're good at.
Yeah, it's smart, and don't fall in the trap of not wanting to pay for something that I can do myself. It's easy to do that, but if you start, I'll do an exercise with people a lot of the times where I'll ask them a bunch of questions. They're telling me their responsibilities, what they're doing within the business, and it's like, this dude's doing way fucking too much, and things are probably getting missed, and other things aren't being done at all. So the exercise is, I'll tell them, okay, how many hours, I want you to document for a week what you're doing every day at work and how long you're spending on it. Itemize that, and then I want you to figure out what you're worth an hour. Not necessarily what your W-2 says or what you tell the government. Like, if you're going to charge for your time, what would it be worth? And usually it's like, okay, there's 10, 15, 20 hours a week of doing shit. You factor that out and how much they're paying for that. It's $20,000, $30,000 a month. It's like, that's cool. You go find somebody that would be getting paid twice as much than what you would need to pay them, and you would still be saving $20,000 a month. You can't afford not to do this. You should probably hire that person.
Yeah. I mean, it's so easy to get in the weeds, man. It's especially with like what we do, right? Like I'm in my truck most of the day. We work out of the truck. I'm checking on jobs. I'm going on estimates. I'm doing different things. You can just get bogged down in the weeds. You don't want to make a phone call because you're sick of being on the phone all day. So then that gets pushed off a day. And now it's like, well, that was just dumb, or you're checking on jobs. You don't think to do certain things because you're not in the office, and that stuff falls through the weeds, falls, through the cracks. So, it's very easy to get distracted and bounce to different things. So you got to really kind of plan your day out in advance, know what you got, know what the top priorities are, and then, plan accordingly, right? Like hit those 5 things you got to do. And then the other 20 things that are on that list, okay, what 3 things are getting done today out of that?
Yeah.
And kind of try to crank out as much as you can, because there's only so much time in a day.
Oh yeah.
So the only way to do that is either you try to do it yourself and probably fall on your face, or bring in people that know what they're doing that can help you out.
The idea of, when you said, you're doing this and then it gets punted till tomorrow, and how many times that turns into 6 months. I mean, I might be the worst at it when it comes to like the content creation concepts I have, ads I want to run, shit, for the business, specifically for Ascend. And I'll have a conversation and it's like, all right, we're going to do that Friday. And then things happen. And literally 6 months later, I'm like, we never fucking did this, did we? I gotta be better. That's my bad.
Yeah. I mean, it happens, right? You get delusions, you get daydreaming about what could be and what you want to do. And the next thing you know, you're like, wait a second, I was supposed to do that 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And it never got done. And then now you're scrambling. Now you're trying to figure out, okay, how can I get this done and not, miss on something else? And, it's always a moving target. There's always work to be done. There's never a time where I'm like, you know what? I got nothing to do.
Yeah.
I got nothing I needs to get done, but it's prioritizing it, right? What has to get done and then what can, get done the next day. But then you better make sure you get it done the next day, because then the longer it goes, the more your anxiety is going to go up because you didn't do it.
Yeah.
And then it's just going to be pushed out that much farther, where now you're like, oh crap, I should have done this 3 weeks ago. Now it didn't get done. Now is it going to be a hassle if I actually try to get it done? If I got to go talk to a homeowner because I didn't order something, now what am I going to tell them? Hey, I forgot to order this for 3 weeks. Now your project's delayed, that type of stuff. It's brutal. And you got to just, you got to bite the bullet and just get it done when you're supposed to get done.
Yeah. And I think it's tough because I think a lot of the times why it happens is because we become so fixated with ensuring the experience that we want for our customers and the level of service that's so paramount, and we become a dog with a bone mentality, that the stuff for our business, I don't even want to play second fiddle. It's like fifth fiddle to everything else, right? Because we've got all our stuff for our customers, our team. You want to make sure they're happy because they have a heavy hand in that, and then like family and things like that. And then it's like, oh fuck, where's the time to think about the stuff that I want to do for the company, for my company? God damn it. Yeah.
I mean,
talk about juggling.
Yeah. I mean, you get up, like, I personally love the summer. My wife's a teacher, so I like the summers because then I get out of the house at 6:30 and I can go check on jobs, 6:30 in the morning, go check on jobs. Nobody's on the road. I can check out everything before anybody's even around. And then you can get a real game plan for the day, and figure out what you want to do, because you don't want to be, I got 2 little kids. I don't want to be working from 5 to 8 when they're actually home, right? You want to carve that time out to hang with them. So what do you got to do? It's either you get up earlier and do that stuff, or you got to work super late. But then I don't want to be working from 8 till 12 at night every day either. So, you just got to kind of manage it out. And as time goes on, it gets easier, right? It's been easier just in 2.5 years, like with what you can do when you find a groove. When we were, like I said, I joked with the wife, like if I worked this hard when I started the business, when I was working for other people, it would have been fine. I would have been promoted a bunch, probably would have never left the corporate world, and it would have been great. But, it wasn't, I didn't have the desire to do it for somebody else. So yeah, I mean, you just got to really focus and manage your time and find what groove works for you.
Yeah.
In 2 years from now, I'll probably say it's something different that I want to do, but
always evolve.
Yeah. I mean, like it's, I mean, just 3 years ago when I started thinking I knew everything and I was going to be a rock star and it was going to be great. And then, I laugh at what a knucklehead I was even then.
That's so funny. Well, dude, I thank you for taking some time coming on site, shooting some content. I had a lot of fun with this.
Yeah, it was great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. And thank you to you for tuning in. Appreciate you coming as well. Shout out again to the team at Roofer. We appreciate you guys helping us bring this to life.
And they are great. I use Roofer myself. So
And on that note, we gone.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.